Before we get started with this week's content, please, if you haven't done so already, like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. Now, without further ado, enjoy this week's show. I lived in a quiet part of town, the kind of neighborhood with trimmed lawns, old oaks, and neighbors who waved but mostly kept to themselves. I was 24, living alone in a duplex near the outskirts of the city, working late hours at a bookstore. Most nights I didn't get home until 10 or 11 p.m. One Tuesday night, as I pulled into my driveway, I noticed a car idling across the street. Not unusual in itself. People park weird, and sometimes friends or food deliveries get turned around in our maze of side streets. But this car didn't move. No headlights, just the faint red glow of its tail lights. It stayed there while I grabbed my bag, locked my car, and went inside. I peeked through the living room curtain. Still there. I stayed up late that night, scrolling on my phone. Around 2 a.m., I peeked again. The car was gone. I brushed it off. Maybe someone waiting for a friend. Maybe just nothing. But then, it showed up again. The next night. And the next. Always parked in a slightly different spot. Always around the time I got home. I started to get that tight feeling in my chest. The one you get when something's off, but there's nothing you can prove. I tried to write it off as coincidence, until Thursday. That night, I got off a little early and stopped by the grocery store. I didn't see any car following me, but when I pulled into my driveway, there it was, already parked, waiting. The car had dark tinted windows, silver Honda Civic. A dent on the back bumper, no front plate. It idled for a minute, then slowly drove down the street. No headlights again. That night, I triple-checked my locks. Slept with a baseball bat near the bed. I called the non-emergency police line the next morning, gave them what I could. They took a report, told me they'd increase patrols, but unless the person got out or made a threat, there wasn't much they could do. Friday night, I parked under the streetlight this time. No car in sight. As I got out and walked up the steps to my door, I heard it. A slow crunch of gravel. I turned. The silver Civic rolled around the corner, tires gliding over the edge of my lawn, pulling just past my house. It stopped. The passenger door opened. That was enough. I bolted inside and slammed the door shut, locked it, turned off the lights. Through the peephole, I could just make out someone stepping onto the sidewalk. He didn't come to the door. He walked toward the side of the house, slow, deliberate. I backed away from the door, heart hammering in my throat. Then I heard it. The side gate creaked open. My house had a back entrance that led into the kitchen. I didn't wait. I called 911 and told them someone was trying to get into my home. Dispatcher kept me on the line. I could barely breathe. The footsteps moved around to the back, then silence. A minute later, I heard sirens. Blue lights splashed across the walls. By the time officers arrived, the man, whoever he was, had vanished. They searched the area, found boot prints near the side of the house. They matched up with the dirt marks on the gate and a smudged fingerprint on my back doorknob. He'd tried it. It was locked. The next morning, I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister. The police never found it. But the next week, 2 towns over, a woman reported a similar silver Civic following her. That time, the man got out and approached her car at a red light. She ran it and drove straight to the station. They said he was in his 40s. Creepy smile, hoodie, never said a word. That woman described the same dented bumper I had seen. I still think about how many nights he sat there, watching, timing me, waiting for the right night, the one where I might have forgotten to lock the back door. I never park in the driveway anymore. This happened to me in late 2022. That's a Walmart just outside of Louisville, Kentucky. I had just moved into my first apartment alone. New job, new city, trying to figure things out. It was around 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday night. Cold, but clear. I figured I'd do a quick Walmart run before heading home. Just snacks, paper towels, and stuff for the weekend. The parking lot was maybe half full, normal for that time of night. Inside it was quiet. The usual mix of tired employees, bored couples, and a few mums grabbing diapers. I was walking past the baking aisle when I noticed a man. Tall, maybe late 30s, wearing a black hoodie and jeans. He stood at the end of the aisle, pretending to look at pancake mix, but I felt him glance at me as I passed. You know that feeling when someone's watching you just a second too long? I ignored it, kept walking, but then I saw him again. 2 aisles over, this time near canned soups. Again, just standing, not shopping, no cart, no basket. I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe he was just wandering. Maybe it was a coincidence. I picked up my pace, turned quickly into the toiletries section. Stayed there for a while, hoped he'd move on. After about 5 minutes, I stepped out, and there he was, just outside the aisle, pretending to look at shampoo. Still no cart, still just watching. This time our eyes met. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just stared, blank. I turned and walked directly to the front of the store, but as I approached self-checkout, I glanced behind me. He was still there, about 20 feet back, just slowly following. I scanned my items fast, paid, no bags, just grabbed everything in my arms and booked it to the door. As I left, I heard footsteps behind me, fast. I pushed through the doors and walked quickly toward my car. But instead of unlocking it, I kept walking around the back of the building, into the garden center area. I crouched behind a pallet of soil and peeked through the rack. He came out a few seconds later, looking around. He wasn't pretending now, he was looking for me. He walked up and down the rows of cars, checking windows, peering into back seats. He didn't have keys, no car beeps, nothing. He was hunting. I waited, heart pounding, afraid to even breathe. Eventually he gave up, walked toward the side of the parking lot, got into a white van parked near the very edge, and sat there, engine running, lights off. I went back inside Walmart, straight to the customer service desk, told the first employee I saw. They took it seriously, called a manager and security right away. Security watched the cameras, confirmed he'd been following me for at least 20 minutes. They walked me to my car while another employee took down the van's plate number. When we reached my car, the van was gone. I filed a police report that night. They ran the plate and it came back unregistered. Never found him. I still shop at Walmart, but never that one. And never alone after dark. Last summer, my family and I decided to take a vacation to a popular all-inclusive resort on the Mexican coast. We'd been looking forward to it for months. A chance to unwind, soak up some sun, and spend quality time with our two kids, without any distractions from work or daily life. The first couple of days were perfect. The beaches were stunning, the food was excellent, and the kids were thrilled by the pool and the playground. The staff was friendly and attentive, making sure everything went smoothly. But after about 3 days, I started noticing something strange. There was a man who seemed to be everywhere, but never quite fitting in. He wore a brightly colored Hawaiian shirt and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, standing alone near the pool or just off to the side of the beach. He didn't talk to anyone or join any groups. He just watched. At first, I thought maybe he was a fellow guest who preferred solitude, but the way he looked at us, especially at our kids, felt different. It wasn't a casual glance. It was intense, almost predatory. One afternoon, my wife was sitting with our daughter near the playground when she noticed the man lurking nearby. He wasn't playing or doing anything normal. He just stood, staring at the kids. Then things took a turn. Later that day, while I was inside getting drinks at the bar, my wife noticed the man approach our room door. When she went to check, the door was slightly ajar. Our key card, the electronic one we used to enter the room, was missing. She confronted him as he walked away from the hallway, holding the key card in his hand. He smiled this unsettling grin, but didn't say a word. That's when things got really creepy. One afternoon, I saw him walk right up behind my son near the pool and grab his wrist. It was a gentle hold, but enough to make me freeze. I ran over and pulled my son away. The man turned, looked at me with that same eerie smile, and just walked off without a word. We immediately reported everything to security. They promised to increase patrols and keep an eye out. But that night, when I peeked out our balcony window, I saw the man standing just beyond the pool area. This time, he was holding something small, wrapped in a piece of cloth. Could have been one of our kids' toys, but I couldn't be sure. The next morning, one of the children's favorite toys was missing. My wife also found footprints in the sand near a dense jungle path behind the resort, leading away from the beach. At that point, we decided enough was enough. We packed up in a hurry and checked out early, cutting the vacation short.
Still don't know who that man was or what he wanted.
Was he planning to do something worse? Was it just a freak coincidence that he stole our key card and followed us around? Or was he scouting us for something more sinister? It's a terrifying thought, but it's true. Even in paradise, danger can lurk just out of sight. Since then, I've been much more careful whenever we travel, especially with the kids. This happened last year, at a regional airport in the Midwest. My flight home had been delayed by a few hours. Eventually, the app updated. Gate C34. Strange. I didn't even know the terminal had that many gates, but I followed the signs anyway. The weird part? The signs were handwritten, taped over the usual LED screens. Still, I was so tired, I didn't even question it. I kept walking, down a hallway I'd never noticed before, then onto a short escalator. It groaned the entire way down. At the bottom, a long corridor, flickering fluorescent lights, cracked tiles, no people, no employees, just that eerie, hollow feeling, like the building itself was breathing. But there it was, Gate C34. An old rolling sign read, "Now boarding." Outside the window, nothing, just pitch black tarmac, no plane, No lights, just dark. I sat in one of those molded plastic chairs, started scrolling my phone. That's when I noticed no signal, not even Wi-Fi. Then, the voice. It came over the intercom, slow, distorted, like someone pretending to sound human. Last call for flight 13312. Departure confirmed. Gate C-34. No airline name. No flight details. Just that. I didn't move. Then, a door behind the gate counter creaked open. No one was there, but I swear I heard footsteps coming closer. I left my bag and I ran. Back upstairs, the escalator was gone, just a blank wall. I panicked, followed the emergency exit signs until I finally burst out, sweaty, out of breath, right near the regular security line. An attendant saw me, confused. How'd you get back there? I showed her the app. She looked at it, then back at me. Your flight was never moved. There's no gate C-34. We stop at C-22. I'm a corporate sales rep, frequent flyer, and a red-eye specialist. I know airports better than my own neighborhood. But last fall, something happened during a layover in Denver, and it's still with me. It didn't start strange. No horror movie setup, no flickering lights, no voice whispering warnings. Just late. And I was tired. I'd landed from Chicago around 11:50 p.m., dragging myself off the plane, half asleep. My connection to Albuquerque had been delayed until 3 a.m. Mechanical issues. 4 hours to kill. I found a quiet corner behind a closed Starbucks, plugged in my laptop, started going through emails. There was an older man nearby, white hair, wrinkled face, tweed jacket that smelled faintly of old cologne and paper. Polite, quiet. He looked like someone's grandfather. We exchanged a polite hello, and every time I glanced up, he was already looking at me, with this smile that didn't quite match his eyes. I didn't think much of it, not yet. Later, I got up to stretch my legs, wandered to gate A23, my Albuquerque gate, still said, delay, 3 a.m. And there he was again, the same man, standing near the boarding doors, staring up at the display, same jacket, same expression, no luggage. I brushed it off, weird coincidence. I went to grab a snack, and when I turned around, there he was, just a few feet behind me. He looked up and said softly, "Late flights are the worst. You're staying?" Before I could reply, an announcement cut in, that harsh airport speaker crackle. Last call to Albuquerque, gate A23. It didn't match my itinerary. My flight was flight 452, not whatever that was. I looked confused. He noticed. They must have missed someone, he said. Soft, calm, still smiling. I made my way back to the gate, and that's when the weirdness began to really settle in. The lighting was off, dimmer, colder. Everything looked slightly gray, like the color had been dialed down. No agent at the desk, no movement. But inside the boarding area, people stood in small groups, staring at nothing, silent. There was no talking, no sound except the hum of the terminal. I looked at the gate monitor, still glowing, flight 452, boarding. I stopped a passing airline employee, pointed at the screen. He barely looked. Flight's boarding, go ahead. So I did. I stepped through the gate doors, and behind me, click, they locked shut. That was the moment I knew something was wrong. A beeping sound echoed behind me, not a scanner, not a friendly chime, something dull, flat, off. I turned around, and everything looked normal again. Agent behind the desk, smiling, motioning me forward. I boarded, found my seat, 14C, and just as I buckled in, there he was, the man in tweed, now sitting in 14B. He hadn't booked that seat, I was sure of it. He smiled again. Bit sleepy, aren't we? Just small talk. But over the intercom I heard whispers. Not an announcement, not words I could quite make out. Just something there. Something threading through the static. Welcome aboard. But the cabin lights stayed on. Too bright. Wrong. Flight attendants walked past me, expressionless. Didn't even glance in my direction. I unbuckled, stood up. No one said a word. Tried the Wi-Fi, wouldn't connect, no cell service. Not even emergency signals. Seatback screen, off, black, lifeless. I sat there, waiting, frozen. And finally the captain's voice, smooth, unbothered. Folks, welcome to Albuquerque. Please remain seated while boarding completes. But there had been no descent, no movement, just the lights coming on, as if the doors had opened. I stood, passed by the man in tweed, and that's when I saw it, his hands. They were shaking. He looked straight ahead and whispered, "It's always the layover people we lose." I ran, didn't think, didn't look back, bolted through the cabin, through the jet bridge, and suddenly I was back in the terminal, but not in Albuquerque, back at gate A23, Chicago, the same side I'd arrived on. The monitor above said, "On time, flight 452 to Albuquerque, 12:15 a.m. I checked my watch. 40 minutes had passed. That's it. I spoke with a few terminal staff. They didn't remember me being there. Some said they'd just started their shift. The man in tweed, nowhere. I booked a new flight, waited at the gate, boarded a normal plane, normal landing, everything fine. But to this day, every time I fly through Denver late at night, I feel that pressure behind my ribs, that prickling at the base of my neck, because I know what I experienced. I boarded a flight that never left the ground, and I don't think it was ever supposed to. I know your parents. It started like any other quiet weekend. My parents had gone to a cabin retreat about 2 hours out, just the two of them. They left Friday morning and wouldn't be back until Sunday night. I was 17, responsible, old enough to stay home alone. And honestly, I was kind of looking forward to it. No siblings, no rules, just me, junk food, and horror movies. The day passed normally. I did a bit of homework, microwaved a burrito for dinner, and by around 11:30 p.m., I was curled up on the couch in a hoodie, watching The Descent with all the lights on. That's when I heard it. 3 slow knocks. I muted the movie, sat up, and listened. Silence. Then again, knock. 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 I froze. We live on a quiet street. Not isolated, but not a place where people show up late without warning. I wasn't expecting anyone. No deliveries. No friends stopping by. I crept to the front door and checked the peephole. There was a man standing there, mid-30s maybe. Tan jacket, ball cap, pale face. I couldn't see much with the porch light off, just his shape lit by the distant street lamp. He stood still, hands in his pockets. I didn't say anything. Then he leaned a little closer to the door and said, "Hey, I know your parents." Just like that. Calm. Friendly even. But something about his voice. It was too flat. I didn't answer. I just stood there, heart pounding. He spoke again. Your mum, Rachel, right? And your dad, Mark? They told me you'd be home, alone tonight. I stepped back from the door. The air felt wrong, heavy. My parents had never mentioned anyone stopping by, and no one should have known I was alone, unless they were told. I grabbed my phone, texted both my parents. Did you send someone to the house? Some guy says he knows you. No reply. I kept the lights off and backed away from the door, slowly. Then, the doorknob jiggled. Once, then again. I bolted into the kitchen and locked the back door, just in case. Then I ran to the downstairs bathroom and locked that door too. A few minutes passed, quiet. Then, a soft knock on the bathroom door, from inside the house. I didn't move, didn't breathe. He spoke, just inches away on the other side. You shouldn't leave the back window unlocked. My chest seized. There was a tiny kitchen window near the sink. I hadn't even thought to check it earlier. He was in the house. I quietly dialed 911, hand trembling. Whispered everything to the dispatcher. She stayed calm, told me to stay on the line. Cops were already on the way. 10 of the longest minutes of my life passed. I heard footsteps down the hallway. Then silence. Then a laugh, low, breathless, followed by the front door opening, then slamming shut. When the police arrived minutes later, I ran out and waved them in. They cleared the whole house. No one was there. They found muddy boot prints by the back door and kitchen window. He'd come in through that. They also found something else. A small Polaroid photo tucked under the bathroom door. It was taken from outside my bedroom window, from earlier that day. I was in the frame, on my bed, headphones on, scrolling my phone. The window had been open just a few inches. The next morning, my parents finally called. Said their phones had been out of service. No signal near the cabin. They hadn't told anyone I was staying home. Not even close friends. They came back immediately. We gave everything to the cops. Prints, photo, even doorbell footage. Here's the twist. There was no footage. The camera, which had worked perfectly the day before, recorded nothing between 11:30 p.m. and 1 a.m. Just a black screen. Like someone had jammed the signal. But here's the part that still gives me chills. Later that week, I checked my Instagram. Buried in my message requests was one from a blank account. No name, no bio, no posts. Just one message. Nice hoodie. Red looks good on you. I've been wearing a red hoodie that night, inside my locked house, with the blinds closed. They never caught him. The case went cold. But I don't stay home alone anymore. And I never, ever ignore strange knocks at the door. Because sometimes they already know you're there. And they already know your name. It was a normal Saturday night. My parents were away for the weekend, visiting my aunt 2 towns over. I was 17, and they trusted me to stay home. I had dinner, watched some Netflix, played Xbox for a while. By 11:30 p.m., I'd shut everything down and gone upstairs to my room. It was quiet. Too quiet, honestly. No traffic sounds, no wind. I was lying in bed scrolling TikTok, lights off, when I noticed something. The security motion light in the backyard turned on. It flicked on suddenly, casting a white glow through the gaps in the blinds. It wasn't windy. No animals. The backyard was fenced in. I got up, peeked through the blinds. Nothing. Just wet grass in the old shed. Light buzzed, then clicked off. I shook it off. Probably a cat. But 2 minutes later, it came back on. I looked again. Still nothing. But I felt that creeping unease crawl up my neck. I went downstairs, checked the locks. Front door, deadbolt. Garage, shut. Back sliding door, locked tight. I even grabbed a knife from the kitchen and kept it on the counter, just in case. I was headed back upstairs when I heard it. A soft tap. I froze. It came again. Tap, tap, tap. From the back sliding glass door. I crept toward the kitchen. The tapping got louder, more urgent, but still, careful. When I reached the door, I didn't go right up to it. I crouched down by the kitchen island and peeked through the side. That's when I saw him. A man, standing just outside the glass, face barely visible in the motion light. He wore a dark hoodie, jeans soaked from the grass. He wasn't looking in, not directly. He was looking slightly to the left, just standing there. Then he turned and smiled, like he knew I was watching. I didn't move, didn't breathe. He lifted one hand, palm flat, and pressed it against the glass. Then the other. And slowly, he leaned forward, resting his forehead on the door, like he was listening. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, he whispered, "I saw you." My stomach flipped. I scrambled backwards, grabbed my phone and called 911. I whispered everything to the dispatcher. She told me to stay hidden. Officers were already nearby. Minutes passed like hours. I peeked again. He was still there. But now, he wasn't standing. He was crouched, one hand on the glass, his face tilted, grinning, like he was waiting for me to come closer. Then, he lifted something from his jacket. A key. My heart dropped. How? Before I could finish the thought, he stood up, walked calmly to the side gate, and disappeared from view. I backed into the living room, knife in one hand, phone in the other. Then I remembered something. We kept a spare key hidden behind a loose board on the side of the deck, exactly where he had been standing. Cops arrived minutes later, searched the entire yard, the alley, the nearby street. No sign of him. But the side gate was open, and the spare key was gone. That night, I didn't sleep, not a second. I stayed on the phone with my mum until sunrise. She and my dad came home early. We changed all the locks, installation a camera system, never left keys outside again. Here's the worst part. A week later, I got a DM on Instagram. No profile picture, no name, new account. Just one message. Next time, don't hide. He never broke in, never returned. But I still check every door, every window, every night. Because somewhere out there, he has a key, and he knows what I look like when I'm alone. You ever go camping alone, just to get away from everything? Yeah. I thought it'd be peaceful too. Last summer I hiked out to a remote part of the Appalachians. No cell service, no people, just me, the woods, and a tent. I set up camp near this little creek and spent the day hiking and sketching. By nightfall, I was back at the campsite, cooking dinner over a small fire. Stars were out. It was quiet. Too quiet. I zipped myself into my tent around 10 p.m., headlamp off, just laying there listening to the wind rustle through the trees. But around 2 in the morning, I woke up to whispering. At first I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard it again, clear as day. A voice right outside my tent, low, raspy, like someone trying not to wake me. I held my breath. Then, another voice, closer. 2 people, whispering, walking in circles around my tent. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. And then, the zipper moved. Not fast, slow, like someone trying to open the tent without waking me up. I grabbed my knife. My heart was pounding so loud I thought they could hear it. But the zipper stopped halfway. Then I heard footsteps, running. No screaming, no talking, just running into the woods. I waited until sunrise to come out. There were footprints all around my tent. No trail in, no trail out, just circles. I packed my stuff and got the hell out of there. I still don't know what they wanted, or how they found me out there. But I haven't camped alone since. They say the forest is quietest right before something moves. It was just me and my cousin Liam out on a weekend camping trip deep in the northern Pennsylvania woods. No reception, no traffic, no light pollution, just a tent, a fire, and the distant ripple of the river. We'd spent the day hiking and fishing, then lit a fire to cook dinner and share a drink under the stars. Around midnight we killed the fire and turned in. The woods were pitch black, the kind of dark where you can't see your hand in front of your face. At first I thought I heard branches snapping, probably a deer, maybe a raccoon. I rolled over in my sleeping bag. Then it happened again. Snap, crunch, pause. Liam whispered from across the tent. "You hear that?" I nodded but stayed silent. We listened. Another snap, closer this time. Now we were both wide-eyed. Liam quietly reached for the hatchet he kept by his side. I grabbed the flashlight, but I didn't turn it on. The steps stopped. The woods went dead silent, not even crickets. Then we heard it, slow breathing. It was right outside the tent. We didn't move, didn't speak, just waited. A faint brushing sound against the nylon wall, then another, as if someone was gently running their fingers along the tent's edge, circling it. Liam mouthed, "Animal." I shook my head. No animal breathes like that. And then we saw it, a shadow against the tent fabric, tall and unmoving, just standing there, watching. We sat frozen in place for what felt like an hour. The figure outside didn't move, it didn't speak, it didn't try to get in, it just watched. At some point I blacked out, not from sleep but from mental exhaustion, like my brain just couldn't process the fear anymore. We woke up to the faint orange glow of sunrise bleeding into the tent. We sprang out, weapons drawn. Nothing, no footprints, no broken branches, no trace, except on the tree across from the tent, carved deep into the bark, were 4 words. "I watched you sleep." We packed up and left immediately. I haven't camped since. I don't care if it was a prank, a drifter, or something worse. Whoever or whatever it was, they were close enough to breathe on the tent, close enough to carve a message in the night, and silent enough to disappear without a sound.
This happened a few months ago, December of last year to be exact. I had just started a new job at a mall. Being a student who didn't go home for the holidays, I figured I'd work through it. I needed the money and it kept me busy. I was scheduled to work most of Boxing Day and finished my shift around 10 p.m. That's when I realized something. I had no idea that public transportation ended at 7 p.m. on holidays. Totally caught me off guard, so I did what most people do these days. I called an Uber. The driver picked me up right outside the mall entrance. But first, it was just a normal ride, casual conversation. He asked about work. I told him a bit, how I was living alone for the holidays, how my roommates went home to visit family and stuff like that. It felt safe to share in the moment. That was a mistake. Fast forward to the next workday at 6 p.m. I'm behind the counter at my store when the Uber driver walks in. He just shows up like this was normal and tries to start a conversation. I brush it off, saying I had to get back to work. But before he leaves, he asks, "So, are we going to hang out later?" I said no. I was firm. He left without pushing it, but something about it stuck with me. Later that night, it's now 10 p.m. and I'm walking out of work, planning to take the bus home. As soon as I step outside, he's there. He pulls up next to me in his car, rolling down the window. "Hey, let me give you a ride. It's free." I told him no. He kept insisting. "Seriously, it's free. Come on, just hop in." I said no again. He kept pressing. After a few more uncomfortable back and forths, I walked away, found the nearest bus stop, and rode home. I was shaken. He had waited over 3 hours outside my job just to try and give me a free ride home. I reported the whole thing to Uber. Thankfully, they took it seriously. They suspended the driver, refunded my previous trip, and even sent me a link to file a police report, should I choose to. Looking back, I was way too open with a stranger. I should never have told him I was living alone. I should never have shared details about my life. Lesson learned. I don't know what would have happened if I got in his car that second night, but the thought still gives me chills. 6 months later, I'm scrolling through Facebook when I come across a Crime Watch article. I click on it. The face in the mugshot looks familiar. It was him, my Uber driver. He had been arrested for multiple counts of kidnapping, and far worse, involving young women, around my age, around my area. To the man who waited outside my job, who tried to convince me to get in his car that night, I hope we never meet again. I hope you stay behind bars, and I hope others trust their instincts before it's too late. I don't even know how to explain what happened. I've been a long-time lurker on Reddit. I've read hundreds of creepy stories, watched all the true crime breakdowns, but this one is mine. It was last Saturday. I went out with some friends to celebrate. We drank, laughed, stayed out late. By the end of the night, I was tired and definitely not in shape to drive. So I did what anyone would do. I opened the Uber app. My driver's name was Mike. He was listed as driving a black Honda Civic. About 5 minutes later, a black Civic pulled up. Same plate number, same car. I got in. We didn't talk much. I was exhausted. He drove me home, dropped me off. I went inside. That should have been the end of it. The next night, I looked out my window and saw a black Honda Civic parked on my street. I didn't think much of it. It's a common car, could be anyone. But the next night, same car. Night after that, still there. It would leave and come back, just sitting, watching. By the fourth night, I was getting freaked out, so I decided to check the plate. I grabbed a bag of trash and walked outside, trying to look casual. I memorized the license number and rushed back in. The next morning, I called Uber, told them everything. I gave them the plate and asked if that was Mike, the guy who picked me up. They said Mike was in the system, but he had never picked anyone up. Not once. He didn't drive that night. The guy who took me home wasn't even an Uber driver. He was just a random man in a black Honda Civic, pretending to be my ride. And now, he's been parking outside my house. I called the police. They said unless he comes onto my property or physically approaches me, there's nothing they can do, so I left. I'm staying with a friend for now, but I can't stop thinking about it. He found me once. He picked me up without me knowing. He knows where I live, and I still don't know what he wants, or how long he's been watching, or what might have happened if I got in that car again. If anyone out there has dealt with something like this, if you know what to do next, please let me know, because I'm scared this isn't over. This happened a while ago. Compared to some of the terrifying stories I've heard, mine might seem mild, but it still lives in my head, and I think about it way too often. I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to driving. I didn't get my license until my 20s, but living in the city, it didn't really matter. Between walking, transit, and rideshare apps, I could get anywhere I needed to go. I used Uber all the time, to get to work, to meet up with friends. Some of the drivers even started to recognize me. There were a few weird ones, but nothing like this. I was 23, working an office job downtown. One evening, I ordered an Uber to go home. The car pulled up, I got in, said hi. He confirmed my address and we started driving. I didn't recognize him. He looked maybe mid-30s, kind of heavy set. But what stood out right away was how often he looked at me through the rearview mirror. And then he said it. I've picked you up before, which at first didn't seem weird. I Ubered a lot. It was bound to happen. But then he started talking, and it got weird fast. He asked if I still worked at the same office, mentioned names of old friends, asked if I still lived with the same people. Then it got deeper. He remembered where I was from, my high school, my college, what I studied, how many siblings I had. He listed it all. Even asked questions he already knew the answers to, just to confirm. You have 2 sisters, right? You went to that university downtown. You were majoring in communications, right? And I just sat there, because I don't remember ever telling any Uber driver this much about me. I've always been quiet, polite, but not chatty. My answers were always vague. Yeah, I've got some siblings. Or, oh, I'm from south of the city. That's it. So how did he know so much? Then he started asking even more personal questions. Relationship status, what year I graduated, where I like to go out. He somehow even knew I had a male roommate and asked what my relationship was with him. At this point, I was frozen, uncomfortable, and I stopped cooperating. My answers got short, then silent, just uh-huh and mm-hmm. I was hoping he'd take the hint. He didn't. He kept asking, and every few seconds kept looking at me through the mirror. Then, near the end of the ride, he shifted again, told me my name was pretty, said I was beautiful, smart, that he hoped we'd match again. When we pulled up, he asked which door was mine. I didn't answer. I gave him my landlord's instead, but he pulled up to my real door anyway. Before I could get out, he turned around, smiled, and said, "This is the longest ride we've ever taken together." Then he said, "Hope I see you again soon. Have a good night." I got out, walked around the building, waited for him to leave. Then I reported him right away. Back then, Uber still had real people working customer support. They responded fast. Said he'd be blocked from matching with me again. Said they'd investigate. For the next few weeks I took the bus. I never saw him again, and I never had a ride like that again. But I still wonder, how did he know all that? Was he writing it down? Was he watching me? Following me? I don't use rideshare apps anymore. I've moved since then, got my own car. I'm in a better place now. But to that Uber driver, who knew everything about me, I hope we never, ever meet again. few years ago, I was moving out of my apartment after a breakup and trying to downsize. I listed some furniture on Craigslist. Nothing fancy, just a cheap IKEA bookshelf, a worn-out coffee table and a floor lamp. I got a message about the bookshelf within an hour. The guy was short, polite and to the point. I'll take the bookshelf. Can I pick it up tonight? Around 9. A little late, but I figured, why not? I didn't want to drag it with me to the new place. I gave him my address. He replied, "Perfect. I'll park on the street, white van. Just help me load it, and I'll be gone in 5 minutes." White van, another red flag, but I brushed it off. At 9:06 p.m. he texted, "Outside." I stepped out and sure enough, there was a plain white van idling at the curb. No logo, no windows, just a van. I walked over. The guy got out. He looked normal, I guess. Mid-40s, balding, smelled like cigarettes and something sour underneath. He didn't shake my hand, just said, "It's in the living room." "Yeah," I nodded, backing up toward the door. He followed me inside. That's when things got weird. He didn't go straight for the bookshelf. He started looking around my apartment, slowly, eyes lingering on things like my keys on the table, my coat, the half-open door to my bedroom. "Nice place," he muttered, walking to the bookshelf like he was casing the joint. He didn't lift it, didn't even try. Instead, he turned and said, "You live alone?" I froze. My stomach dropped. "No," I lied. "My brother's here. He's just in the shower." He stared at me for a long second, then gave a small smile. "Cool. Can I use your bathroom real quick?" That was it. I knew. This wasn't about the bookshelf. I shook my head. "Nah, sorry. Plumbing's messed up." He didn't move. Then he said, "You sure? You don't seem like someone who'd lie to me." My hands were shaking. I had my phone in my pocket, but didn't want to make it obvious I was reaching for it. Just then, a stroke of luck. My neighbor Joe, who I hadn't told was coming by to drop off my spare keys, knocked on the door. I opened it immediately, loudly. "Hey man, come in." Joe stepped in, confused. I gave him a look. He picked up on it immediately. The buyer's face dropped. "Forget it," he muttered, walking toward the door. "Keep the damn bookshelf." He got in the van and peeled out so fast he nearly hit a parked car. I filed a report with the police. They said there had been a few Craigslist-related incidents recently. Robberies, attempted home invasions, always the same setup. Late-night pickups, polite emails, white van. They never caught him. But I've never sold anything online since. I'd just moved into a new apartment and didn't have much furniture. Just a mattress on the floor and a folding chair. One night, I spotted a Craigslist listing in the free stuff section. Free couch, minor stain, pick up only, must go tonight. Posted 17 minutes ago. The picture showed a basic beige sofa in what looked like a clean garage. Perfect. I texted the number. A guy named Rick replied instantly. "Yep, still have it. I'll be home after 9. Garage door will be open. Just put around back." That was the first weird thing. He wanted me to go behind the house. But hey, free couch. It was dark when I pulled into the narrow alley. The back of the house was barely lit by one floodlight. Sure enough, the garage was open, and the couch was sitting there just like in the photo. But there were no other cars, no lights on inside the house, and no sign of Rick. I texted, "Here now. Couch looks good. You around? He replied seconds later. Yep, go ahead and grab it. You need help lifting it? I replied, sure, if you don't mind. Then, nothing. No footsteps, no voice, just dead silence. I waited. Suddenly, from inside the garage, I heard a muffled cough. Not from the house. Inside the garage. Behind a door I hadn't noticed. Curious and stupid, I stepped a few feet into the garage and peered at the door. It was metal, scratched, slightly ajar. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. Next to the couch was a GoPro, half hidden under a towel. It was on, with a red light blinking. I picked it up. It was recording. A text came through. Are you inside yet? I backed up immediately, heart pounding. Just as I turned, I heard the creak of the door behind me, opening slowly. I ran. As I threw the truck into reverse, I saw him, a tall man in a hoodie, standing in the garage doorway, not moving, just watching. When I got home, I connected the GoPro to my laptop. It had several videos. Each one showed a different person coming to pick up the free couch. None of them showed the person leaving. Each video ended the same way. The camera gets picked up, turned off, and placed back under the towel. I turned everything over to the police. The listing disappeared the next day. The number stopped working. And the house, the one I drove to, it had been abandoned for months. I still don't know who Rick was or what he planned to do. But sometimes I wonder how many free couch people didn't find the camera and how many others never got back into their cars. It was just past 9 p.m. when Daniel left his friend's place, deciding to walk home through the old Pine Hollow Trail, the shortcut he'd taken 100 times. The night was humid, thick, with that eerie stillness that comes just before a storm. Crickets had gone silent. The trees didn't sway, not a single breeze. As Daniel passed the rusted fence near the trailhead, thunder cracked far off in the distance, a low, guttural rumble that seemed to roll beneath his feet. He hesitated, but home was only 15 minutes away. 10 steps in, the first fat raindrop hit his cheek. Lightning flashed overhead, illuminating the twisted trees like skeleton hands, reaching for the sky. The path narrowed, roots curling across it like veins. That's when he noticed something. A shape up ahead. A man, just standing there. He wore a soaked trench coat and had no umbrella, no phone light, nothing. Just standing, facing Daniel. Too far to see his face. Too close to ignore. "Hey, you okay?" Daniel called out. The man didn't respond, didn't move, just stood like he'd been planted in the mud. Daniel stepped off the trail slightly to walk around him. As he passed, he glanced sideways. The man's face was pale, eyes wide, and lips slightly parted like he was whispering something. Daniel froze, because the man wasn't whispering. He was mouthing Daniel's name. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. The rain came harder now, the sky roaring above, trees whipping side to side. Daniel turned and ran. His feet slammed the wet trail, slipping, nearly falling. Behind him he heard footsteps, not running, just steady, wet, slapping. He looked back. The man was still walking, not running, not chasing, just following. Every time lightning lit the trail, the man was closer. No sound, no breath, just those cold eyes and the slow, determined walk, like time didn't matter. Daniel broke out of the woods, gasping as he reached the road near his neighborhood. Cars passed, lights, life. He looked back. The trail was empty, just trees and darkness. He never saw the man again. But that night, as Daniel lay in bed, thunder booming overhead, he checked his phone. A notification from earlier popped up, one he hadn't noticed. A man found dead on Pine Hollow Trail. Identified as Daniel Mercer. Time of death, 9:03 p.m. Daniel stared at the screen. That was his name. And it was 9. I've never told anyone this full story. It still makes my skin crawl, even though it's been nearly 10 years. I was 20 at the time, in college, living alone in a cheap one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. I worked part-time at a coffee shop and usually closed the place down, walking home around 11:30 p.m. most nights. I didn't have a car, and I couldn't afford Uber or taxis all the time, so walking was just normal. There was a small park I cut through to get home. It shaved 10 minutes off my walk, and I'd used it for months without issue. The path was lined with tall trees, and while the center of the park got dark at night, the city had installed a few motion sensor lights along the trail. You'd walk a few feet, a light would blink on. It always felt kind of eerie, but not dangerous. Until one Wednesday night in late October. That night, everything felt off. The air was still, the trees weren't moving, and there was this heavy silence, like the whole world was holding its breath. I kept telling myself I was just tired, being paranoid. Still, I found myself walking faster than usual. About halfway through the trail, the first light didn't come on. I paused, waved my arms. Nothing. Just dark. The light behind me was still on, casting my shadow long across the trail. That's when I heard it. A branch snap off to my left. Not a squirrel, not a twig. A solid crack. I froze. I looked but saw nothing. Just the thick trees and a picnic table off in the shadows. "Hello?" I called out. Nothing. I told myself it was probably a raccoon and kept walking, faster now. But with each step, I got the unmistakable feeling I was being watched. You know when you just know eyes are on you? That sixth sense crawled up my spine like ice water. I glanced behind me. That's when I saw him. A man. Just barely visible at the edge of the trail behind the trees. Not moving. No flashlight. No phone. Just there. I stopped, hoping maybe I was imagining it. He took one step forward, slow, deliberate, then stopped again. I didn't wait to see what he wanted. I broke into a run. As I ran, the motion lights didn't come on, not a single one. Just blackness, my footsteps, and the pounding of my own heart. Behind me I heard footsteps, not sprinting, but following. Every 10 seconds, a crunch of leaves. That night I called the police. They said Unless he was on the property or tried to follow me inside, there wasn't much they could do. For the next 3 nights, he came back, always the same spot, always late, just watching. So I packed up and moved in with a friend across town. I stopped closing shifts, changed my routine, stopped walking at night, and I never saw him again. But every so often, when I'm out late or walk past a park, I feel it, that same heavy silence, that chill on the back of my neck, like someone's waiting just beyond the trees. To the stalker in the park that day, let's not meet again. Remember, fear doesn't go away. It just follows you home.